All right, let's get right into it. We're looking at a huge geopolitical puzzle that's unfolding right now, deep in the mountains of Iran. And this isn't a mystery being pieced together by spies on the ground. Nope, this is all coming from satellites. And the pictures they're sending back? Well, let's just say they have the world's intelligence agencies on high alert.
So picture this. It's February 9th, 2026. High-res satellite imagery picks up something. Well, something pretty alarming over at Isfahan. Now, this is one of Iran's most sensitive nuclear sites. And what the satellite saw was that something that was there one day was just gone the next. Okay, so here's exactly what the satellite saw. On the left, you can see these tunnel entrances, right? Clear as day. But now look at the image on the right. Those same entrances, they've just vanished. They're buried under tons and tons of compacted earth. And there's no vehicle activity, no signs of ongoing work. It's done. Which, leads to a pretty huge question. Why in the world would a country deliberately bury its own nuclear facility?
Right, so this wasn't some kind of landslide or accident. No way. This was a calculated, totally deliberate defensive move. And it's designed to counter some very specific threats coming from both the air and the ground. So it really serves two critical purposes. First, all that earth, it acts like a giant cushion, basically. It's meant to absorb and disperse the impact from even the most powerful bunker-busting bombs. Think of it like a massive shock absorber. And second, and this part is absolutely crucial, it completely changes the game for any kind of ground raid. I mean, you can't just send in special forces to blow a door when that door is buried under who knows how much soil. You lose the element of surprise, it's going to be loud, and it's going to take a lot of heavy equipment. And this quote from a former British Army intelligence officer, Dr. Lynette Nussbacher, really hits the nail on the head. She points out that Iran is doing this in a way that's totally observable from space for a reason. And here's the key takeaway. They're not trying to hide this. In fact, they want places like Washington and Jerusalem to see it. It's a message, a really clear signal that says, hey, the price tag for any kind of military action just went way, way up. Which, of course, brings us to the central question. This is the one that's keeping nuclear nonproliferation experts up at night. What exactly is so important that Iran is protecting it inside those tunnels? Okay, this number right here, 408.6 kilograms. This is the key to the whole mystery. Before the last major US and Israeli strikes back in June of 2025, this is how much uranium Iran had stockpiled that was enriched all the way up to 60% purity. And just so we're clear, that is dangerously close to weapons grade. And here's where it gets really tricky. The IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency, basically the world's nuclear watchdog, they last put eyes on this material on June 10th, 2025, right before those strikes. Ever since then, inspectors have been completely denied access. So the reality is, nobody outside of Iran knows for sure where this stockpile is. We don't know if it's survived the strikes, or, and this is the big one, if it was moved into those very tunnels before they were buried. So, okay, just how dangerous is this missing uranium really? I mean, having a big pile of highly enriched uranium is obviously a problem, but what really matters is how fast you can turn it into an actual weapon. Well, according to analysts, the timeline is staggering. From a cold start, they could produce enough weapons-grade material for their very first bomb in just 2 to 3 days. That's it. Give them about 3 weeks, and they could convert that entire stockpile into enough fuel for something like 9 nuclear weapons. This is what experts call the breakout timeline, how fast a country can sprint to the finish line. And Iran's, well, it's alarmingly short. Now, of course, none of this is happening in a vacuum, right? This is all part of a very high-stakes geopolitical chess match. It's all about military pressure and incredibly fragile negotiations, mainly between Iran and the United States. And this table here, it just lays out the standoff perfectly. You've got the US on one side demanding Iran curtail not just its nuclear program, but also its ballistic missiles and its support for regional proxies. On the other side, Iran's demand is simple: lift all the sanctions. And their strategies? The US is using what's called coercive diplomacy, basically using massive military pressure to try and force concessions. Meanwhile, Iran is doing exactly what we've been talking about, hardening its defenses to make military action more costly, giving them more leverage. It's really coercive diplomacy versus hardened defense. So what's crystal clear is that Iran is adapting. They learned some very specific lessons from those previous strikes, which were called Operation Midnight Hammer. They learned to roof over damaged facilities to block satellites. They learned to harden their tunnel approaches, to disperse their equipment to make it harder to target. But the biggest lesson? Create ambiguity, create uncertainty. Because the less your opponent knows for sure, the harder it is for them to plan their next move.
And that brings us right back to square one, doesn't it? Back to the mystery of Isfahan. All of these strategic calculations, all this defensive work, it all converges on one single massive unanswered question. As security analyst Dr. Afred Safar puts it, you have to wonder what the Iranians are hiding in Isfahan. Their actions, she says, make it seem like they're expecting some form of kinetic engagement. That's analysts speak for an attack. So the question becomes, what asset is so valuable that they are this determined to protect it? So what could possibly be behind that wall of earth? Let's run through the possibilities. Is it that 408.6 kilogram stockpile of highly enriched uranium? Maybe. Could it be their operational centrifuge cascades whisked away to safety just before the last strikes? Also possible. Or, and this is a really interesting one, could it all be an incredibly elaborate bluff? A way to protect tunnels that are actually empty, just to create leverage and make your enemies think twice. And that really leads us to the final, chilling question. This entire situation is a game of deterrence, and it's built on a mountain of assumptions. Iran is betting that burying its secrets will be enough to prevent an attack. The US is betting that enough military pressure will force Iran to back down. But in a game with stakes this high, what happens if both sides are wrong? What happens if they've both miscalculated? Because in a nuclear standoff, a simple miscalculation, well, that could be catastrophic.